Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Tuesday night where we are watching another round of weather history. What you see right in front of you is Hurricane Maria, which is now closing in on the island of St. Croix. It's less than 70 miles from St. Croix and on a steady west-northwest course. That eye is going to pass over that island during the early morning hours and through the Virgin Islands and making landfall in Puerto Rico as a Category 5 hurricane. And it has now surpassed Irma in terms of the lowest pressure. Irma got down to 915 millibars, I believe. This one has been strengthening rapidly ever since it moved off the island of Dominica, which was completely wiped out, by the way. Pressure here now at 909 millibars. It's been intensifying at about 3 millibars an hour for the last 12 hours or so. It's just been an incredible explosive intensification process that has taken place. And there have been a couple of hints during the day of an eye wall replacement cycle, but they have been aborted both times, so we'll have to see if one tries to start before landfall. That might temper the storm ever so slightly, but you know what, from these eye wall replacement cycles can cause fluctuations in strength, but you know you're dealing with here as a Category 5. This may be the strongest hurricane ever to hit Puerto Rico, by the way, and there have been some over the many years, but this one may take top honors from that respect. So let me say hello to Cynthia Guiñadas. Regal Racer is here. Thank you. I'm glad you. Another thank you, by the way, because you hit the super chat the other day. I really appreciate it. Thank you. James NASCAR fan, Isaiah, Sonny Fournier, Father Simeon is here. Good to see you here, Father. Isaiah Jacob, Raymond, Dio is here. I saw you pop up earlier. Karina, Nathaniel. All the regulars are on board, which is really good to see. And let me see if I can get this. I want to make sure I say hi to everybody. Zachary, Alvin, Gypsy, Bill Thompson, Nathaniel, Timbo Kill, Pugmaster, Mirtha Gunter, Gariel, and a big welcome to everybody that's with me tonight. So really, this has been quite a 4-week stretch. I've seen nothing like this. Even 2005, I'm sorry, 2008. No, I'm sorry, I was right the first time. 2005. Even 2005, I mean, as remarkable as that was, this was, we didn't really have much that went up the East Coast, but watching these last 4 storms has been just an absolute meteorological marvel. I can't wait to when they write down all the history. I want to go back and kind of review it all when this is all finished. And the history of Maria is not done by a long shot. And the eye, let me see if we can get a fresher picture here for you, a fresher loop if it'll update. Now, still don't have a new frame yet, but this really, there's nothing here that says weakening. It has excellent inflow, excellent outflow. You have a well-developed, well-established core, almost perfectly circular, a perfectly symmetrical hurricane. It's like it's out of a textbook, and it just is barreling west-northwestward towards St. Croix and to Puerto Rico. The water temperatures in this area are well up into the 80s. There's no wind shear at all. The upper air conditions are perfect for a major. The atmosphere is absolutely ripe for it. Now, to the side, and we'll see if we can add a few new frames. Maybe we can get the eye to start to appear. You could probably just start to see the eye right on the very edge. That might be it there in the lower right corner of Hurricane Maria. And there are already bands of rain moving onshore into eastern Puerto Rico. They're getting some very heavy squalls swinging out through the Virgin Islands. So at least from the standpoint of the radar, we're going to be able to follow this on the San Juan radar when that is the eye wall probably. Look how small it is. That little bright white spot that appears. Very, very small. I think I saw before that it was 5 miles in diameter. I don't remember if it was at 5 or if it was 9, but it was definitely under 10. I'm at the point right now where I'm making a lot of mental mistakes with regards to the names of the storms and trying to keep them all, trying to make sure I'm referring to the right one, because they all have been sort of involved with each other in moving this, in one affecting the other. Regal Racer, post pics and vids when I can. Oh, absolutely, by all means, post. Scott Horton, thank you for the kind words. 99 Wolves, it looks on its current track that the eye is going to go over the east coast of Puerto Rico and pass very, very close to, if not over, San Juan. Oh, thank you, Ellen Abraham. I really appreciate it. Yeah, if you can't find the super chat, which is usually that $sign, it's on the bottom of your chat page, you can go to my PayPal. I'll put that there in case. And there's no obligation, folks. If I just put it out there. It's on my website, and here it is. If anybody's interested, it's a good cigar and or a cup of coffee is always welcome. Okay, let's take a look at the Hurricane Center's forecast here. It hasn't really changed very much throughout the day, but we have it as a major hurricane. Look, all these hurricane warnings that are up for the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and now also for the North Shore of the Dominican Republic. It stays a major all the way through. Thank you, Brian Harris. Thank you for hitting Super Chat. I really appreciate it. That's a cup of coffee or a cigar, depending on what I'm in the mood for. Once it will have landfall on Puerto Rico tomorrow morning, probably around daybreak. And then beyond that, did I say 165? You see, Anthony, I'm making these mental mistakes. Highest winds are 175. Again, thank you for correcting me. And I'm actually thinking in my mind that I had said 175. I know it's 175, and I said 165. Again, all of this creating some, mental mistakes that I'm making. The Hurricane Center is maintaining the forecast. We have, by the way, we do have watches up now for hurricane watches up for the southeastern Bahamas. So that is a new development from late this afternoon, and it keeps it as a major hurricane. They keep it as a major hurricane until 2 p.m. Sunday. But you know what? There's no way to know what the strength is going to be. You can only assume that it can't hold on to category status for 5 status for too long. Although Irma did it for, what was it, 6 days? I forgot. Again, this is what happens. I used to be so good at remembering all this stuff, and I'm not that good anymore. So we're going to look at the models tonight too, but I want to show you Jose now, which is, gradually going to be losing tropical characteristics here. Let me bring it up to the top. And, you can see where the center is, and it looks like it's coiling its way to the northeast. This is not going to make any landfall, but we are getting impact in the form of coastal flooding up and down the New Jersey coast and over Long Island. Actually, the tides were rather high with the first tide, and we've got one this evening, right as we speak, and then another high tide tomorrow morning, with Jose forecast to be out in the open waters of the Atlantic for the next several days or more, actually for the next 5 days in some form. I think we're going to see more coastal flooding. We mentioned the fact that we have a new moon, the autumnal equinox, all of that happening at once, and that is going to create coastal flooding issues for at least the next several days. As far as the rain is concerned from Jose, we've had some rain bands that have been moving in, but they have really been very limited. Some places have wound up with some brief heavier downpours, but there's one patch now that's moving through northeastern New Jersey. There seems to be a few scattered areas around Long Island, and then there's some other bands offshore. But the darker greens that are way to the south, that is the area that's associated more with the center of this, and those are not going to be coming on land anytime anywhere. So at least from that standpoint, the heavier rains that are offshore are going to stay offshore and are not going to be problematic. So let's look at what the models do with this. And we're going to start. I'm going to start with the new GFS. Now, you guys that are here have heard me, my opinion on this. When we look at these models, try not to get. You can't look at every single run and go on an emotional roller coaster, because it doesn't get you anywhere. Okay? Because in 6 hours, when the new model run comes out, you go on another emotional roller coaster. And I'm trying to get you guys out of that habit so that you avoid emotional roller coasters. And by the way, while we have been in this ridge position in the eastern part of the United States, this big upper high, there's been a deep trough in the west, and that is snow that you see up in the northern Rockies. That's been occurring for the last couple of days. So it's very warm here, and unusually warm weather pattern in the east, being offset by an unusually cool weather pattern out in the west. Now we'll roll it along so you can see what Jose does. And here we are for Thursday, and you notice it comes to a grinding halt, and then actually drops southwestward on the GFS, and then just kind of sits south of Cape Cod or southeast of Montauk and gradually weakens. Now Maria comes onto the scene here east of the Bahamas as a pretty strong hurricane if it's right on the pressure, makes it a very close pass to the North Carolina coast, and then after that it gets perilously close to the northeast from New Jersey to southern New England. It almost looks like it's in the same position that Jose is in from yesterday, and in fact it's actually a little bit further to the west on this run. Now we are in squirrely land with the models here. We're at day 7, so that could be anywhere, and it certainly could be out to sea, which is what the earlier runs did. But what we need to just really look at is the upper air through all of this, because that really is going to be the driver. And Jose is the other wild card in all this, because we don't often see hurricanes moving up the east coast into a ridge position. This big upper high that you see from northeast Texas on up into the eastern Great Lakes and western New York. You don't usually see hurricanes moving up the east coast with an upper air pattern like this. Usually you see them move up with deep troughs, which makes it easier to forecast, because they'll be caught in a strong flow in the jet stream and they'll just ride it up, and you just have to kind of figure out a matter of miles in terms of the track. Is it, you're going to be off a little bit, but it's a bit of an easier forecast because it's a little more obvious. In a case like this, where the flow is weak, it isn't so obvious. And plus, on top of that, you have the remnant of a hurricane that's going to be decaying in the backyard of the Northeast, and that makes things very, very complex. Now, what happens is that Maria is on the western edge of an upper high that's out to its east in the Atlantic. Much like Jose, it's kind of trying to punch its way northward. And then you have troughing resulting from Jose that creates a weakness. And up it comes on this run. It was further to the west than the prior. Now, I think one of the important keys to this is going to be this trough in the west and an upper air trough that's going to be swinging down out of Canada. Okay, so timing is going to be everything with this. If this trough, which on today's late GFS is not that strong, one of two things can happen. Either this thing gets drawn westward into a diving upper air trough into the Great Lakes, or it gets kicked out to the east. And in the instance of this particular run of the GFS, it gets kicked out to the east and then turns northeast and north into Nova Scotia. And by the time we get toward the 10th day, it really begins to cool down in the eastern part of the United States. It's just really a kind of a wholesale pattern change for at least a little while in the long range. Now, the European was interesting today because it kind of opened the door to this idea. It actually was a little bit different. If you follow Jose as it moves southwestward as a decaying low, it actually brought it inland as a decaying upper air system into the Delmarva Peninsula, and then it kind of pulls the Maria northwestward, and just at the point where you think it's going to be barreling into the coast, you've got this deep upper trough that's back in the northern plains, and that is going to act as a kicker and kicks it out to the northeast. So really, it's the timing of all these systems that is going to be crucial, and the wild card is going to be Jose. And what does Jose do? Does it open up an alleyway for Maria to move to the north? Does it eventually pull it up to the northeast? Does it pull it back westward? Those questions you can't answer at this point, obviously. But we do have a very, obviously, we do have a very complex upper air pattern, in spite of the fact, usually if you've got deep troughs running around, you're going to have complex things to look at with a lot of different areas of energy to try to resolve. In this instance, we're dealing with an upper ridge, which makes it a different challenge, and it's a challenge that we're not used to. I'm not used to it. We don't often see, as I said earlier, you don't often see upper highs moving up the East Coast when you have a ridge in the east. It's usually when you have a trough in the east. 358 Bobcat in New York, South Jersey, down by Seaside. One of the piers was damaged. I did see that, yes, in the storm. Jose was nowhere near the Jersey shore, and people on the news are making ridiculous comments. I know. Well, what can you do? This is the world we live in. I try to keep it sane. I think you guys know that, and I'm going to continue to keep it sane. I'm not going to go off the deep end. Teppy9076 has hit the super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You guys are all very generous and very kind, and I really appreciate that greatly. Thank you. Trying to run through some question. Thank you, Ellen Abraham. I really appreciate it too. Cat and dog treats. Yeah, they'll sure love them. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. You guys are so cool. Nobody should be on an emotional roller coaster unless you live in Puerto Rico. Let's be real. Absolutely correct. You are so correct. And that's why we need to keep some perspective here. Looking at these model runs that do all these different things, and people going off the deep end about stuff in the long range. That's a waste of time, and we're not going to be doing that. We certainly are not going to be doing that on this YouTube channel, okay, or on my Facebook page or on my website posts. So you always rest assured that you will get a calm approach to all this, and a logical one. Anthony Orr, our resident historian, to keep Joe honest, pressure is number 10 lowest pressure on record in the Atlantic Basin, lower than the 910 millibars that Hurricane Yvonne had. And that was, when was Yvonne? Was it 07 or 08? I forgot, or 03. You're starting to, I'm messing it up here again, Anthony. Keep me honest. Joe, when do I expect the weather to change in the Northeast and start as far as it getting cooler? Well, I don't know about when we're going to get 50s, 40s, and 30s, but with respect to getting cooler, I think once the Maria puzzle plays out with whatever trough swings to the east, that should at least break this ridge down for a while. So that should cool things off. It's funny that we've had, we went through the whole summer with these sort of odd appearances of the upper ridge for 2 or 3 day stints, and that was it as far as hot weather was concerned. And now here we are at the middle and end, the end of the second half of September, and we've got this big ridge in the east and deep trough in the west. You just shrug your shoulders and you just have to wonder. Raymond, it is going to come in. It does look like a buzzsaw. And I think that's a good way to describe what it looks like with that. Reuben Kincaid, wasn't there an S storm, an S named nor hurricane that had a pressure measured in the 890s? I don't recall one. I don't want to say no because Anthony will prove me wrong if I do. So if you heard that question, Anthony Orr, you might be able to answer it. Hurricane Maria is already stronger than Hurricane Hugo. This I think will be the strongest hurricane ever to hit the island of Puerto Rico, and definitely stronger than Hugo was. Can Jose not do the loop and go out to the northeast? And what would happen if it does not loop? Zachary, absolutely, that's possible. Looping hurricanes at this latitude are unusual. If it goes out to the northeast, my thinking is that the ridge in the Atlantic will be kept stronger, and likely keep Maria more on a westerly course for a longer period of time. I think that would be the outcome if Jose were to move out, because it would it would not be creating that weakness in the ridge west of 70 west. So that I'm guessing is what the outcome would be, but that's assuming that there are no other complications in the equation, and there's always, even when you think there's no other complications, somehow they always manage to show up. Do you think the Euro and GFS are getting too aggressive with Jose over the Northeast? There's nothing to be aggressive with. I mean, if you're just, because, I mean, in terms of the weather going on, there's nothing really going on other than these small bands of rain, except for the coastal flooding, which is because of the hurricane being so close. But you have, as far as the loop is concerned, the models seem to do this loop in one form or another. There are not that many that are taking it out to the Northeast. Raymond, you're looking for that rain to get up at Interstate 90. If you're talking about Jose, yeah, it's never getting up to you. It's not even close. It's barely to me where I'm sitting here where I work, which is in southern Westchester County. You'll have your stuff to deal with up there, up at I-90, up in the Albany area. You get plenty. A good thing is Puerto Rico will know how to get safe. They will be high in the highlands. However, damage is going to be catastrophic, and they may lose 90% of their infrastructure. Scott Reese, that's a very good point. That is correct. Nancy Wilson Yautis. Oh, Cynthia's mom in Central PA. She said you were. Oh, thank you so much. She has told me about you, and we want you to stay safe. So, I'm going to keep an eye on Central PA, especially to make sure that you get no, you get no floods and you get no big snowstorms. Well, you'll get big snowstorms, but thank you for being on here. Really, it's great. We're about Terrytown. I'm actually in Rybrook, Bill Thompson. We're in Rybrook. Island of Vapaz, love White Plains. Flew in there. White Plains is a nice little city. It really is. It's kind of like it's kind of a city with very much a smaller town charm to it to some degree. It's sophisticated in some ways, and yet in other ways, there's a quaintness about it in certain areas. So it's quite nice. Oh, you worked in Irvington. Okay, cool. That's not too far from where I am. Zachary Grybos, could Maria go under 900 millibars? You know what? If there's no eye wall replacement cycle and it's still deepening very rapidly, why not? While I have you guys here, let me see. The recon was in there still, and I think they were about to make a fourth pass. So let me check to see what they got. And let's see. All right, it looked like the plane on its 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth pass, it got to 909. Then the last pass it said 911. So maybe it's possible. It went from 920, 916, 913, 910, and now 911. So I can't really see whether is that the bottom or not, or is a little hiccup up. Hard to say. It's at 17 north, and the longitude is roughly maybe about 64.2, 64.3 west. I'm just kind of eyeballing it on the map, so I could be off by a little bit. And the way it's moving, if I draw a line, the eye wall will probably go over the eastern part of St. Croix, and then right into the eastern part of Puerto Rico, somewhere in the middle of the coast, assuming that it's a straight line motion from here, which is always a guess. Let's see. Will the Fujiwara effect occur with Jose and Maria? I don't know if it would be Fujiwara so much as that Jose is going to be so much weaker. It is going to open up that weakness for Maria to move into. I mean, ultimately, if you believe the European and a couple of other models, that Jose just weakens eventually so much that perhaps Maria winds up absorbing whatever is left of Jose. But you know what? This is going to be really, really fascinating to watch over the next number of days. And we, of course, will be on top of it. You know, I may, depending on how soon I can get to sleep tonight, I might be up early tomorrow morning at the point where it's making landfall in Puerto Rico. So you know, look for a live stream maybe around 7 a.m. And we'll give you all the latest goings on with the Maria, Jose, the overnight weather models, and we'll go from there. Glenn Thompson, what is the Fujiwara effect? Well, Fujiwara is you have two cyclones very close to each other, and because of the natural forces of you know, centrifugal force and centripetal force and so on, if you take the easiest way to explain it, really, an old-fashioned kid's a top, okay? If you spin two tops and they try to come together, if they're spinning fast enough, they actually will never touch. They'll kind of bounce off each other. And the idea is that these hurricanes, when they're close together, they begin to kind of rotate. One might try to rotate around the other. So it impacts the track in that way. And usually what happens is, with hurricanes that are close together, you know, one winds up dominating over the other. Sometimes the weaker one is the one that pulls the stronger one. So in this case, that may be where the weaker Jose may wind up pulling Maria up northward. But when there's two full hurricanes, and they're usually, like, if they're less than 600 miles apart, you'll see this sort of effect where one tries to rotate around the other. Neutral Enzo this winter. Scott Reese is referring to El Nino, La Nina. I've seen some talk the last couple of days about a La Nina developing. So we'll see about that. We'll worry about that when after we get the hurricanes done. Funky Bell, J Bell, I assume you just heard my explanation with regards to the Fujiwara. You know, it's basically when they get too close, centripetal force, you know, they start to rotate around each other. Hop down to the Bahamas and I'll put you in the middle of some awesome big game fishing. Island Vapaz after Maria is done, okay? Not now. Southern Nassau County, stars are out, fast moving clouds northeast to southwest, winds 25 to 30, iron mine 10. Yeah, there's you know, there's dry air that's getting entrained into the circulation now of Jose, so we may finally see this drop under hurricane strength before too long. And Cameron Pine, the pressure's brewing, pressure's lowering in the. You know what? Honestly, I didn't give that a close look, Cameron. But you know, when I get a chance, I'll take a look as far as you know, possible development beyond Maria. I really hope we get a break because I'm tired. Okay. So no, Raymond, there are no bands coming anywhere close to I-90. So stop. All right, they're not happening. All right, folks, listen, I have to go because it's almost TV time. Again, I'll stream live. I'm going to try to stream live and get up tomorrow morning. That's what I figured, Anthony. Maybe an eyewall replacement cycle may be starting, and it might go quick, so we'll see what happens. We'll see you in the morning, probably around 7 a.m., and I'll try to make sure that I wake up. And in the meantime, have a great night. And those of you that might be watching, if you're watching from Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, I hope you have yourself and your family safe and secure through all of this. And you know, let's hope that things don't turn out too bad. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. You got a Category 5 hurricane staring at you. God be with you, and we'll see you in the morning.